Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Research and Innovation Week 2022. So thank you for joining us today. We have a very exciting program today. This morning, you're going to hear from Kate Bonansinga and her team with Step Up to Art. So we're so excited on behalf of the Office of Research for you all joining us today, and thank you. I encourage you, if you haven't had an opportunity to do so, please register for the rest of the program that we have going on today and the rest of this week. It's a very exciting day of programming today and the rest of this week. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Jess Krobzinski, who will introduce the team. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Jess Krobzinski, and I'm one of the co-leads of the Community Change Collaborative. And so I'm excited to introduce this project, which poses the question, can public art on Cincinnati's exterior stairways improve the emotional and physical health of its residents and the connectivity between neighborhoods? So Step Up to Art addresses this question by reimagining the pedestrian infrastructure and consequently the future of social interaction through the implementation of art to transform 19th century stairways located in Cincinnati's urban core. The stairways will become inviting public spaces that encourage pedestrian traffic between neighborhoods of varying socioeconomic and racial demographics. And they will also be sites for physical exercise and emotional connection for all people at all times. The mural on Ohio Avenue stairs will serve as the pilot for a larger project. And this pilot was funded by the Community Change Collaborative out of the Office of Research at the University of Cincinnati. And for that project, the research team partnered with two neighborhood associations, and those are Clifton Heights, University Heights, Fairview Neighborhood Association, and the Mount Auburn Community Council. So with the local nonprofit spring our steps to host these 3 group meetings with community members to select the artist team. The mural will be implemented this spring, and in February of 2022, Ohio Avenue Stairs piloted and earned the 2021 Golden Paintbrush Award in the Love Thy Natty competition, conferred by the nonprofit Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. The Step Up to Art research team members here with us today include Kate Bonansinga, the PI, professor and director of School of Art in the College of Design, Architecture, Art, and Planning, and is a nationally known contemporary art curator. Vikas Mehta is a professor in the School of Planning, College of DAP, and an international expert on public space. Mohammed Rahman is an assistant professor in the School of Design, College of DAP, and communication and environmental design expert. Jenny Yustick is an associate professor of the School of Art, College of DAP, and is an internationally recognized muralist. And Nathan DeLong is a graduate student and Master of Landscape Architecture in the College of DAP. Other team members include Rachel Nolan, a PhD assistant professor in the College of Medicine and expert on public health, and Christian Hulsman, Executive Director of Spring in Our Steps and graduate student, Master of Community Planning, School of Planning, College. And I'll turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Jess, very much for that kind introduction. I'm Kate Bonansinga. I'm the PI on this project, and I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a minute here. Is my screen being shared?
Yes, looks good.
Great. So I'm going to give just a 5-minute introduction of the project, which goes into a little bit more depth than Jess just shared, and also a timeline of how this all came to be, what I'm going to start with. In the fall of 2020, Muhammad Rahman, who is an environmental design expert and graphic design specialist, and I partnered in a program that College of DAP Associate Dean of Research, Claudia Rabola, developed called Grant Accelerator. And that program pairs researchers, not so much randomly, but she sort of selects people that she has noticed are doing innovative and interesting research, and pairs them together, or maybe there's 3 or 4 of us, and sort of mentors us on how to develop cogent and viable grant applications through the development of ideas for transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, cross-media research endeavors. So in the fall of 2020, Muhammad and I participated in the Grant Accelerator and were paired as a team. And we spent a lot of time, most of that semester really, talking about how we could bring our research interests together into a shared and exciting project. So I have been teaching a course. I self-identify as a contemporary art curator and a higher education administrator. And I've been teaching a course in collaboration with my colleague in the School of Planning, Danilo Palazzo, who's the director of the School of Planning, about art in public space. So I bring a background in fine art curating and museum practice, and he brings a background in planning, city planning, and architecture. We've been teaching this course since 2013 collaboratively. And so I've developed sort of a secondary expertise and interest in art and public space, specifically post-war to the present contemporary art in the United States in public space. So when Muhammad and I were talking about his research, which is about, and he will tell you more about it when he presents in a few minutes, about signage and words in urban environments and how they create an identity for that place or share the political history of that place. So he, after a few months of talking about what we were currently working on and how we could develop it into a plan for the next step, mentions Professor Vikas Mehta, because he had been working with Vikas on some other projects and Vikas had mentored him on some of his research projects. So we pull Vikas into the conversation, and Vikas mentions that he's very, very interested in stairways because, and again, he'll give you some more information on that, but he is of Indian origin and there's a history of stairways to the wells as a water source, from what I'm recalling correctly. So we decide, okay, well, maybe we'll talk about stairways. So then Muhammad reaches out to Christian Yulesman, director of Spring in Our Steps, which is a local nonprofit that has been in existence since 2012. All this happening in the late fall of 2020. And Christian reminds us that Jenny Yustick, who's a nationally known muralist and a member of the faculty of the School of Art, with whom I work quite closely in the context of teaching here in the school, she's on the board of directors of Spring in Our Steps. So this is how our research team developed. And through that, and then in the spring, we decide to expand that. We are super interested in, okay, so we're developing public art in public space, and what is the real meaning or the real purpose of that? It's actually to improve public well-being and sense of identity of place and connection to place. So we reach out, it was Dana Cranley that put me in touch with Rachel Nolan in the College of Medicine. And then she joins our team as the sort of public health specialist. Then Nate DeLong enrolls as a graduate student in the School of Planning in the fall. He joins our team. Christian Yulesman, the executive director of our nonprofit partner, also becomes a student at DAP. So he's sort of got this twofold connection to our project. So that is our Step Up to Art team. And what you see here on the screen is the staircase that we're improving, which is the Upper Ohio Avenue stairs, which connects Bellevue Park, which is in the Clifton Heights, University Heights and Fairview neighborhood, and extends down to Van Leer, which is just to the north of Vine Street. So it actually connects the Cuff neighborhood with Over the Rhine, or close to Over the Rhine. And here is a little bit more information about the research team I just told you about. And here is the problem statement that we are tackling with this pilot of the Ohio Avenue stairs, which is that we are attempting to connect two of Cincinnati's neighborhoods. We have observed as a team and through other research that the 52 neighborhoods in Cincinnati are in and of themselves pedestrian friendly and traversable on foot, but very rarely do people walk from one neighborhood to the next. And that's what the staircases do. They make it possible to traverse from one neighborhood to the next. And we've got many of them, almost 400 of them, that were a pedestrian network for our city 100 years ago and before, but have sort of fallen into disuse and some of them into disrepair. And with this pilot project, we would like to, we're planning to change that and reignite the staircases as a method for neighborhood connection and neighborhood pride. The secondary part of this is that often the staircases are contingent to parks. And because parks are a source of urban, it's one of the things that distinguishes us as a city is that we've got a lot of green space. And so hopefully by reigniting the use of the stairs, we'll also reintroduce or introduce people to the value of spending time in green space in our parks. So in the process of developing this idea of this pilot on the Ohio Avenue stairs, and by late spring, we have then applied for the Community Collaborative Change Grant, and we're very honored to earn the grant of about $15,000. And with that $15,000, we are commissioning artists to implement a mural on the Ohio Avenue stairs. And we did that through community engagement sessions where through the CUF, the Clifton Heights, University Heights Fairview Community Council, through that council, we invited people to come and talk to us about their aspirations for the stairs, their connection to the stairs, how they use the stairs, how they think that they could be improved. And we had 3 different sessions. That was the first session. And then we moved along. And by the second session, we were selecting artists that we had a list of and shared images of from a request for proposals, or request for qualifications, excuse me. So past work by the artist. And then through that process, we selected through the community engagement, the community members really selected an artist team known as Day Williams and Lizzie Duquette. And that's the artist team that will, in either April or May of this year, next month or the following, actually implement the mural on the stairs. And this is what the mural will ultimately look like, the one at the top here, number 1. We vetted these various plans that the artist proposed, and through a community vote, we plan to implement mural number 1. Also in the spring and into the fall, we engaged with the city because the steps are city property. So in the fall, we went before, as a team, went before 2 subcommittees of City Council, Culture, Youth, and the Arts, and the Planning and Zoning subcommittee, as well as before the entire City Council to earn their support for implementing a mural on city property. And we also began culling usage data of the stairs. So we, again, my team member, Nate DeLong, will go into more detail about this, but we put step counters on the railing so that we know how many people have been using the stairs. And then we will once again implement them post-implementation of the mural to hopefully see an uptick in the usage of the stairs because people will feel intrigued by the mural and come and see and climb the stairs because of that. We just earned a permit to paint on the stairs from the city and are in the process of working with the city for the power washing that needs to happen before the paint is applied. And that's where we are, with the ultimate goal of using this stairway as a pilot to create connection between neighborhoods and between people, and ultimately create a city of pedestrians that will hopefully improve the quality of health of the people who reside in Cincinnati. So with that, I will pass the baton to, I forget who, I think it's Vikas. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Vikas will tell us a little bit about public space and how our stairs will become a venue for public, better used as public space, better utilized.
Great. Thank you, Kate. I think that's a great introduction for the project. And I also like that you included how this all came about. You know, we all are sort of in the same building with very similar interests, but the idea of this grand accelerator kind of just circling back, you know, and finding people you work with who are often next door to you, you know, have an interest in it, like you and Jenny being in the same school.
Yeah.
So it's actually important that we continue with these efforts within UC and within DAP too, to make sure that we are not missing out on things that are kind of low-hanging fruit, if you will. So the couple of things that I want to talk about in this project, which all of which Kate did touch upon, are a community-based participatory action research as being something integral to the way we are sort of conceiving or visualizing what could happen on these stairs. Sitting in DAP, we could very well, you know, with our capacity, determine what is the best for a particular stair, having to do with its length, with its what it's connecting, what is its condition, etc., etc. But I think we determined early on that it would be really key to bring the community into this. So it doesn't feel like here we've got more murals, which are fine, and the stairs will look better, but they don't particularly get used any better because we don't understand why the community doesn't use them or what might really make the stairs far more integral to their everyday needs of moving around the city and maybe going to a public space. As Kate said, many of these are connecting you know, green space within or in adjacent neighborhoods. So that became a very key piece of the research method. And I think in some of the slides that Kate showed, there was a slide of a host of community members. So what we did was we created, in this small pilot project, we still wanted a community engagement. And we wanted them to sort of really explain to us what is going on. When they use the stairs, what are the impediments? What are the kinds of things that they would like to see? What are their other experiences, whether they're about safety or whether they're about, you know, enjoying being out in nature, etc., etc. So we use those as ways to get community input. What we really want to do is the effort that has gone into this pilot is far more than the time that we would actually be able to allocate to a small project like this. But the advantage of what we've done is now we can scale this up in a way that we have tested many of these methods and tested and found sort of where this project like this should be going. So the involvement of the community is really key, because ultimately, if these stairs have to be used and cared for and, you know, become part of their community, become part of their pride, the neighborhood pride, then it is key that the community, in fact, talk to us and we get their input. So that's one of the important piece of the method in going about doing this, which is a little bit different from many of the other art projects that happen in cities that are often sort of coming in from outside into neighborhoods. And the second piece that is very critical to me, and that's how I got interested into this, is I teach a class which is about city systems or systems in cities. And one of the things that had come up when we were looking at Cincinnati early on, probably 6 years ago, was a system of these stairs. Many of them are underused, unused, derelict, under repair, broken, etc., etc. But with a city of hills or hillocks, at least, we need these stairs to be sort of part of our pathways to move through the city within a neighborhood, or especially across adjacent neighborhoods. And so what we want to look at this is, with this one pilot, we are testing out the ways and means and how we actually would do it. What are the impediments? What are the stakeholders that have to be involved in such a small thing? But the key is to be able to scale it up in a way that, what if we are able to upgrade and bring art to 6 staircases that are in fact part of a network, that if they are places that people can move on, they'll be able to move to many more places and interact with many different kinds of things in the city. So that's the key, and that's where we are actually taking this to the next level. We are applying to a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant. And the idea there is that we are looking at these as systems of 3 sets of staircases, not 3 stairs, but 3 sets of staircases that connect several neighborhoods together. And that's the intent, is to move forward with this as a system for Cincinnati that can make it fairly unique. Now, it doesn't mean other cities don't have this, but we have the staircase infrastructure already there. We have to put in a lot of effort to build it, but also to really conceive of these as very, very unique public spaces. And as you can see on this map, in the light yellow, you see these stairs actually not far from each other, and they create these complete systems of movement that makes it so much easier for people to get to one place rather than have to drive around across a terrain. So I'm going to leave it at that and pass it on to Nate. And of course, we'll take questions in the end if there are any. Thank you.
Great. So in order to generate data, we have enlisted the help of some tech, and we have here some infrared counters originally designed for counting retail traffic. We're using them outside with the help of some boxes that we fabricated. In order to secure them, we have very good information that if they're not secured, they will leave the site. And this is a picture of one of the 2 devices which sit and face each other with an infrared beam passing between them on the stairs.
So Nate, we see the map. We don't see the counter. So you might want to advance. There you go. Thank you.
Oh, I'm in presentation mode, but that's not projecting, I guess.
We see the counters now.
Okay. So these are the counters, and here's the box that secures them, and here is the counter attached to the stairs. So we are monitoring the stairs all the time. I check the stairs multiple times per week, and we record the data. We are able to capture whether stair users are passing up or down, and we can, of course, compare that with weather data and other conditions on record in the city. We have found that some people are curious about the counters and might move them or otherwise disturb them. So periodically they have to be realigned. And so that is one of the limitations of this data. We are hoping in future rounds of funding to include funding that could get us some much more sophisticated counters that would automatically upload data and would also be easier to kind of hide away to capture this data. The initial counts since mid-November can be shown averaged over the time period of the data collected. And we can see that a lot more people go down the stairs than up the stairs regularly. And that is somewhat unsurprising, but what we're looking forward to getting more data as the seasons change, comparing it with data after the implementation of the art, and also comparing all of this data with data we are collecting about the demographic users of the stairs, which we are not able to collect 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because of concerns about data security and people's right to privacy. But we are keeping track of this methodology so that it can be improved and expanded for future staircases as we look to scale the model and expand it to more sites and create something that can be replicated in other communities.
Great, thank you, Nate.
May I ask you to stop sharing your screen, Nate? Wonderful. Hello, everyone. I am Jenny Yustick. I'm a muralist for a long time, studio artist as well, but since 2003, I've been working with artworks particularly, but I just wanted to say nonprofit arts organizations. There have been others, but started a habit, a long-running habit of working with nonprofit arts organization to complete projects in neighborhoods. 2008 was my first mural project, and for 10 years I completed summer apprentice-based projects with artworks. And in 2017, I began to branch out on my own quite a bit and travel internationally and at the national level to engage in communities and with partners in different ways, and to, I guess, just diversify my experience with the process of making artwork that lives outside and is visible to the public. I learned quite a bit over the years of working with artworks in making these murals, particularly working with communities and participating in a really thoughtful and thorough listening process, a dialogue with the community, to hear what their desires are for works of art, what their concerns are, and sort of what it means to have a work of art created in one's community, whether they live there or work there. So something that has come up perennially in these processes is the importance of feeling like the voices and the faces and the sort of the values of those residents and people who work there, that they're represented in these works of art, sometimes through direct depiction, and sometimes through concept development in collaboration with an artist or artist team. So the idea of representation is essential. So sometimes a problem that comes up in the design and the creation of a work of art that lives outside is that I think that there's an overwhelming desire for the work to be visually pleasing and eye-catching, oftentimes bright colors and sort of uplifting messaging. These are desires that are often listed, but it's also challenging to represent concerns and problems that exist in a community, even if there's a desire to address those in a work of art, or at least to acknowledge them. So rather than depict problems or political issues or concerns, one way that has come up as a successful way to provide that representation is in the engagement process itself, with the residents and with the, say, community council members who participate in these dialogue sessions, but also in the solicitation of submissions for artist teams. So representation when it comes to a diversity of voices, approaches, and lived experience, that's something that can be invited in the RFQ process. So we were really thoughtful about how we wanted to engage artists in this. Before I pull up images, I wanted to just provide a little bit more background about my relationship to this project, and referring again to some of the things that Kate described as the formation of this team. In 2013, I joined the board of directors for Spring in Our Steps, and it was sort of an outgrowth of my own experience in making public art and working with communities, and getting in the habit of taking really deep dives into the history of communities and neighborhoods. And you're just gaining a really appreciation for what the history of a place is, what that has meant for the residents, and maybe what the implications for the future would be. So really doing my due diligence as an artist and as a planner of public art projects to learn as much as I can about a place if I'm going to be working there. So if I'm not a resident in a place, but I'm an artist who proposes a work of art, I want the people who live there and work there to know that I have taken great responsibility in learning what I can and doing my best to represent their values and voices. So Spring in Our Steps, the involvement there came from an invitation on the part of Christian Hulsman to participate in a community cleanup. And there was a specific site around a set of stairs at St. Joe Alley at Wendell Alley. And I have a personal connection to those stairs. My mother grew up in the home immediately above this really special set of stairs. And as a child would use the stairs to travel to school just below. And so that sort of personal story of relying on a piece of pedestrian infrastructure to access education and resources was just very personally important to me. And that struck up a friendship and a partnership over the years that I guess is sort of bearing fruit today. So I'm really happy about that. So in this process, I'll pivot back to our artist process. Let's see. So what you see here is an image of the Artworks office. This is Artworks, the nonprofit that I have worked with over the years. They moved in recent years from the over the Rhine Central Business District boundary up to Walnut Hills, and they commissioned two of their alumni artists who had been apprentices and then project managers to design a custom piece for their offices. And this is a partnership between Day Williams and Lizzie Duquette. And these are the artists that the community have chosen, the community of Cuff have chosen to implement the project on the stairs. And so I just wanted to show briefly the sort of the inside of the Artworks offices to give you a bit of a stylistic suggestion. But you've already seen a version of this image, and here's a variation on that in terms of color palette. But this is the design that the community has chosen. One more note about the process. I think that the design is engaging, and the community is excited about having this implemented there. But it was important to us to issue a request for qualifications rather than proposals. This was discussed at a certain length among our team, that to incorporate fairness of honoring the work that artists do in the submission of projects like this. I think that it is sometimes an oversight on the part of planners of projects to expect artists to submit original designs as a proposal for a project, when really there's a more fair process by which we can look at an artist's portfolio, ask them to describe a proposal that they're going to make, and then trust them through the process to create something when they are chosen. So I just wanted to add that element of fairness, which was really important to us. All right. Thank you. And now, Mohammed.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the nice introduction, Kate. So last part of the presentation will consist of signage system in the project. So I have some quick visuals for that so that you can have a little glimpse of what we are thinking in terms of signage in our project. These are some of the research projects that we have done between me and Vikas at UC and DAP. I'm certainly interested in the branding strategies or communication tools in the public space system and how type and image can work together. On the left, that project we actually presented in the RI week in 2018. So remembering that. And so the main question that we have been looking at is how can signage transform urban staircases with public art to activate neighborhood pedestrian networks and also the public spaces. So wayfinding, as you know, is everything that you do to navigate the way around an experience. Signage actually functions as one of the evidence-based design element, which is more tangible in the system by addressing some of the functions and need of the community pedestrians. In this pilot project, signage is try to establish an urban system with the art-based identity and storytelling. And also in this process, signage incorporates the accessible information layers of orientation and also connections and facilitate future placemaking opportunities when the project will go citywide. So as a user, definitely the art will be a certain factor in the whole process of walking and connecting between those stairs, but also they look for these informations, I guess, like they want to know the artist and the neighborhood, which street I'm on right now, or which neighborhoods I'm in now, where does this stair lead me to, what is the fastest route to be there, or even how many steps are here. So steps in our springs in our steps, Executive Director Christian, one of our research team member, and Jenny actually originally approached the city's Department of Transportation and Engineering in 2013 with this sort of an idea, a general idea of the staircase system. And also this is one of those bollard signs they have created in 2017, and I'm connecting it from DOT Design Capabilities Portfolio. And what we are thinking, there are a lot of, I mean, we are just in a transitional design phase right now with the information and data that we are collecting in the space. So these are one of those prototypes they had. And one of those initial design proposals will have certain layers of information that we have, like neighborhood stairway pedestrian network map, a little bit of brief project description, certain certain description of stakeholders, partners, and neighborhood community. We'll also introduce the QR code to access information about the artist, the community, and the artwork as well, thinking about the citywide system or network of signage system. Um, a little visual of that. And for the last slide will be more like a strategy of how we are thinking of this signage design and urban system. In the pilot project, we are mainly looking at the information and sociability factor of this. So the information will have a development of signage standard that will provide a consistent information layer, as I showed you in the previous slide, while allowing for artistic contents. In the sociability, which I'm interested in, like how that will encourage equitable sociability in public spaces, and also will lead to increased physical and emotional well-being in the communicative, visible, and safer environment, which we got from the data that we have. And in the longer or broader project extension, we'll also integrate some of the local design distinction, and also systemize it in a situation where the staircases with sign will become the both destination and node of a citywide network of, we call it pedestrian transport system as art experience, with efficient connections between walking routes and neighborhoods. So we are in terms of discussing with the city and also with regarding the budget of this signage system for this pilot project, which will be implemented soon at the end of the project. And then we are also thinking of the overall network or the connection of the signage system in the project. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing all of that information. And I think it's the moment we open for questions from the audience. Raise your hand or put a note in the chat. And I think Muhammad's sharing of information and presentation really sort of encapsulates what we're trying to do, which is create it's really an information-based project, isn't it? And one of the things none of us mentioned, including myself, is that the Contemporary Arts Center, which is in downtown Cincinnati, one of the 3 important art museums we have in our city, has agreed to partner with us in that information sharing. So the QR code that Muhammad mentioned that will be on each of the signs will take you to the Contemporary Arts Center website. And there you will find a very deep dive into the artists and the previous work that they've done. So you'll have some information on the analog sign that you have access to immediately. Okay, so we've got a few questions. Is there any data challenge for this project you anticipate? Again, I think that maybe Nate and Vikas could answer that question better than myself. Does one of you want to chime in there?
Hi, Kate.
Yeah.
Just want to jump in and tell everyone we have about 5 minutes left. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great question, because one of the ways that we are trying to actually prove that this would be something that would impact the use of stairs, and it's not just a project that gets done and it looks good and that's it. I think the key here is that it actually improves the movement along those neighborhoods, those pathways. And so we've been trying to be very diligent in trying to collect the actual count of people, systematically, as Nate presented with those counters before the artwork gets done. And we've been collecting that data now. And we will do that for several weeks after the artwork, and hopefully even beyond that. So I think that will give us a little bit of context in terms of, data in at least in terms of numbers. We are hoping that we might have the ability to also collect data through more community engagement post the sort of the painting of the stairs, to see what are the other ways that the community feels that this serves them or it doesn't. So I think that's something we want to keep in mind, that we actually collect data pre and post and be able to use that for scaling up for other grants for the stairs.
So that's great. I think the data piece is interesting to me. If you see that the data indicates that it's mostly children using the steps, 90% of the people using the steps are children. Does it tell you that we want to make this artwork more geared toward children, or does it tell you something else? Does it direct you to do something else?
We have to be very careful with what you see and what you observe, because oftentimes, as I say, what you don't see is equally important. So assuming, for example, if we notice a high use of children using the stair, that's great. But we also then want to know, what about others? Why are they not using the stair? Certainly children using the stair tells you a lot about trust and community safety and all of those things, which is great. So we want to do this in multiple layers and to figure out, what about the people who still think and have other ideas around perhaps why they are not using the stair. So, as you know, Jen, it's a very complex process, but we are hoping that we can, over the months, try and tease some of this out. That would help us better for sort of the other ideas for other stairs. Nate has also been collecting data in terms of noticing who is using it. And we've got key categories, not just by age, but by race, etc. So we know, our data is a little bit more nuanced than just number of people.
Thanks. It's a cool project.
Also, dogs use the stairs, accompanied by people typically. That's one limitation of the data, is that our counters, we need to do more testing to figure out how dogs are counted.
When we start, we did learn that videoing is infringement on privacy, and that sort of video surveillance would take us to a whole another realm of having to capture permission. That's why it's not a video count, it's just a count of number of users rather than, so we can't really capture type of user unless we stand at the stairs, which is something that Nate's been doing, actually standing at the stairs and observing who uses the stairs and keeping record of that.
Well, thank you all for sharing. And if we want to do any wrap-up remarks, if you guys would want to put in the chat, maybe sites that you can be found on, or any reach out opportunities, that would be great. But thank you all for joining us at this R&I Week event. And I hope to see you in all the next ones. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.